Hello, I'm Emma Green and welcome to the Virtual Engineering Centre's podcast, Engineering in Digital. In today's instalment, we are focused on digital and technical skills, the emerging need for this support during the country's recovery from COVID-19, and what happened when the Virtual Engineering Centre introduced a budding student to some of the region's heavyweights, including Cammel Laird and the National Nuclear Laboratory. In March 2021, the government and HM Treasury released their policy paper, Build Back Better, Our Plan for Growth. This explained how high-quality education and skills training played a vital role in sustaining productivity growth and our international competitiveness, with improvements in skills accounting for 20% of the UK's productivity growth before the financial crisis. A particular challenge for the UK is the pipeline of technical skills, as 80% of the workforce of 2030 are already in work today, many of which need opportunities to upskill or reskill over their careers to progress and adapt to industry changes such as automation. The UK has persistent technical skills shortages in key sectors such as construction and manufacturing, with only 4% of young people achieving a high technical qualification by the age of 25 compared to 33% who get a degree or above. The Virtual Engineering Centre is today pleased to be joined by Campos Marin, our technical team lead for the centre, alongside Harry Doyle, our student placement from the University of Edinburgh. Today here to discuss the importance of harnessing digital skills for the future workforce in the industry of tomorrow. So welcome both and thank you for joining me today. So without further ado, Harry, can you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Harry. I'm a student at the University of Edinburgh, studying mechanical engineering with renewable energy. So I'm in my fourth year and I'm currently on placement at the VEC on a 6-month placement. In terms of sort of my background and my aspirations, I'm interested in engineering and have pursued a career in engineering because of my interest in sustainability. I think that engineering is key to sort of fighting the climate crisis and sort of improving society, and that's kind of what I want to do really, is use engineering in that way and sort of improve people's lives through engineering.
That's actually a really nice way of looking at engineering in today's society. So how exactly did you come to find out about the Virtual Engineering Centre?
So as part of my fourth year of my degree, I'm required to undertake an industrial placement. So I was on the lookout for potential opportunities, and particularly in the Northwest, where I'm from. And I found out about the Virtual Engineering Centre for a family member, actually. And so I decided to get in touch and find out more about the Virtual Engineering Centre. And I thought it sounded really interesting. I thought the projects that they worked on sounded innovative and exciting. And so from there, I just kept on going and asked how I could get involved, and it took off from there.
Perfect. So, but what was it that really got you interested in working with us?
Yeah, so like you say, I'd heard about a few of the projects and I thought it was exciting and innovative and I wanted to be a part of that. But also I saw it as quite a big learning opportunity. It was an area which I wasn't particularly familiar with, particularly with the use of sort of virtual reality with Project Faith. And I thought that the chance to get involved in that at an early stage in my career would be really beneficial to me and really interesting as well, to find out how these new and innovative technologies can be used in engineering to improve processes, etc.
So we're also joined today by Mark Bankhead, Technology Manager and Scientist at the National Nuclear Laboratory and our collaborative partner from Project Faith, and has also supported on our NVEC projects. So thank you very much for joining us today, Mark.
Well, thank you.
So first of all, what can you tell us about Project Faith and what was the involvement through the National Nuclear Laboratory?
So Project Faith was part of the BEIS Nuclear Innovation Programme. It's about £40 million worth of funding that was being allocated to unlock the next generation of nuclear energy technology. It was a £5 million project led by Cammel Laird, with National Nuclear Laboratory as the kind of prime subcontractor to to Cammel Laird, and then also involved working with a number of other strategic partners of both Cammel Laird and National Nuclear Laboratory. The purpose of Project FAITH, so Project FAITH stands for Fuel Assembling Incorporating Thermal Hydraulics, and it was threefold really. First of all, we wanted to upskill UK manufacturing industry in applying off-site modular manufacture to the construction of nuclear plant. Secondly, we wanted to use this as an opportunity to upskill the National Nuclear Laboratory's capability in thermal hydraulics science, with thermal hydraulics being one of the kind of key technologies that's used to substantiate all different types of nuclear reactor design, because it's the mechanism by which heat is transferred from the fuel to the coolant and then to the turbines to generate electricity. So it's a very key part of the capability that we need to re-establish in the UK, particularly around the re-establishment of experimental facilities, which linked very closely to the off-site modular manufacture. So the whole theme of this was to design experiments using modeling and simulation and science, and then to manufacture them off-site and deploy them onto our facilities. And then the third sort of facet we had within this was digital technology, and the idea was to use digital technology as the glue to link together the off-site modular manufacture, the thermal hydraulics science, and also the other aspects of project delivery within nuclear, such as like the assurance capability, the project management functions, procurement, etc., etc. So all of the different other aspects that you would have within a project, and that's where the digital technology came in, and where the VEC were very helpful in supporting NNL in developing some of the technology we showcased in FAITH.
Perfect. So what would you say is the importance of projects like this and such collaborations to partners such as Cammel Laird and the National Nuclear Laboratory?
Well, the major benefits from us were sort of upskilling capability. As I say, the nuclear is going through a bit of a renaissance, but it's been many decades since the UK has designed and manufactured its own sort of nuclear facilities. To sort of the BASE program is very much aimed at kind of meeting that skills gap, and NNL's playing a key role in that. Helping, also developing our own capability, but also helping organisations such as Cammel Laird develop their capability. And one of the things we were doing with Cammel Laird is transferring our knowledge about nuclear safety and assurance systems to their own manufacturing processes, so they can start to think about how they would manufacture for the nuclear sector, for example. So every aspect of FAITH involved a degree of knowledge sharing or capability development. And that's why this was so important.
Great. And then obviously we had Harry join the Virtual Engineering Centre as part of a 6-month summer internship, and he was involved in Project FAITH. So how did you and the team find Harry joining?
Well, having Harry on board was absolutely brilliant, to be honest, because he was a very enthusiastic individual. He was interested in the application area that we were developing with you guys, which was virtual reality. But also, because he had an engineering background and was doing an engineering degree, it allowed him to sort of seamlessly sit between the NNL engineering team working on the rigs, the Cammel Laird team who were doing the design of the manufacture of the rigs, to actually support them with the development of digital technology. So it worked really well. We got him involved in a number of different project assets, including the design review, the commissioning trials, and also some of the dissemination activities that we were doing around the digital piece.
Brilliant. Sounds like he was very busy. So what were the key outcomes from Project FAITH?
So the key outcomes were, obviously the physical outcome was we designed, manufactured, commissioned an experimental test rig within 18 months during a global pandemic, which was quite an achievement. I would say the nuclear industry hasn't had the best reputation for delivery. The fact we were able to do that in the background, and of course we did it all against our own existing standards. We didn't cut any corners for this. Was remarkable. The amount which we've learned across the project has been absolutely fantastic in terms of upskilling ourselves in thermodynamics science and also in digital technology. But also, I think from the work with you guys in particular, some of the key learning we've got is the sort of case studies that we need as an industry to understand what the benefits of digital technology are. And there was a number of examples where we identified areas and were able to quantify the benefits of bringing digital technology into the project delivery process. So the rig we built in Faith was relatively simple. It was using water, heaters, electricity, these usual pumps and systems, these sort of things. Nothing particularly hazardous apart from the electricity sort of side of things, but nothing difficult to deal with. But as we move forward, we plan to build rigs operating on liquid metal coolants. They have additional safety hazards associated with them. They're also technically more complex as well from a rig perspective. And we'll be looking at applying this technology more front within those projects using this learning such to ensure that we don't suffer the same slippages that so even within the project we did suffer some delays. We don't have the same delays which we had within the phase one rig design, and that's some really important learning. And we can also think about applying that learning right across the nuclear sector as well to away from these kind of what was very much a small R&D project, Faith, to something like a big construction project like a modular reactor, for example.
Yeah. So what were your thoughts on having students involved in projects such as Project Faith, and what do you think are the key benefits to businesses who are supporting interns and student placements?
Well, I mean, as the UK's National Nuclear Laboratory, we see that sort of development of students has been absolutely crucial, because that sort of skills role is part of our mission for the UK, really. It's not just for ourselves, but also to encourage people to move into nuclear organisations, right? From industry to academia, right across the board. So having a student placement was really was seen as being really strategically important from that perspective. It was a great experience working with Harry, and we'd hope to do the same again, I would think, and we get students of similar caliber contributing to the project, because they just bring a different perspective, enthusiasm, for example, willingness to learn. Probably one of the most challenging parts of working with Harry was giving him enough things to do, because he kept finishing the things we kept giving him. So we had to come up with something else for him to do now that isn't too difficult, but at least keep him busy for a while. But yeah, no, it was a really positive experience, and as I say, strategically important from NNL's perspective to kind of help bridge that sort of skills gap we have in nuclear.
Brilliant. And then I know you've touched on this briefly, but what were the benefits to your own team during Project Faith, and did they develop any new digital skills through the process, or build on any existing skills that they may have had?
Yeah, so I mean, Harry's project was around developing a virtual reality model of the rig, and it started from an opportunity that happened midway through the process. So we were going through the initial design of the rig one, the water rig that we built and installed at Workington. Then the global pandemic hit, and of course everything was disrupted in terms of transport and travel, and we saw an opportunity then to start to bring in some digital technology. And the first application of that was we developed a 3D model, suggestion that came up in a meeting, and then we used that within the HAZOP 1 of the actual rig 1 design, and we found it to be quite useful in terms of it gave us the ability to do a walk around of the rig, which we would have done in a meeting room by walking around different views of the actual 2D drawings. But because we couldn't do that, so effectively over a video conferencing platform, the 3D model more than fulfilled that function. Though the initial application we did wasn't perfect because it had some deficiencies within that model. It was only put together in a few days. So what we did with Harry's project was to then say, well, what would be the ideal virtual reality 3D model that we could create for something like a HAZOP? And we came up with a scope and a wish list, and we built that environment, and then we're now feeding that back in within both our engineering teams and also our assurance teams, who are very interested in using it for not just design but also the assurance functions around safety and operability and hazard management issues. We've also identified opportunities for cost savings within projects. We used the VR model to identify there was what was in paper a small issue with the rig design. Was one of the safety doors opened the wrong way because we developed the so you couldn't have actually an operator couldn't have actually got onto the safety platform and closed the door behind them. We were able to identify that within the VR model, fix it at the factory before it went up to our facility. If that had happened in a real world deployment on an active facility, that would have been a very expensive mistake and difficult to rectify, and would have resulted in significant delays. So we can see some real world benefits for the work that he was doing already. We certainly like to take that forward.
Brilliant. And then, so I believe your studies at the University of Liverpool involved completing your PhD in chemistry, and you've been at the National Nuclear Laboratory since 2002, where you started as a research scientist. So starting from your own experiences and career so far, what changes and shifts have you seen in digital skills?
Well, there've been some significant changes. I mean, I've been in my research my research background has been in digital technology, so from computational chemistry moving into digital technology, and what I'm sort of seeing is I kind of view it as a broadening of interest in digital. So a lot of the technology that people are talking about today is not new to me, because people talk about technology like machine learning, artificial intelligence. They were used in chemistry 30 years ago, and that's where a lot of them came from, actually. But what we're seeing with the development of capability and computing and visualization, and I mean, I remember in my PhD at Liverpool we had a rather expensive workstation with a 3D visualization capability. You could put some glasses on and you could see molecules in 3D. It was incredibly impressive for the day. But now you're seeing that technology, that workstation costs an obscene amount of money for those days. You're now seeing that technology coming more mainstream, so you can buy that for the home now. You can easily we've got multiple headsets in now for doing this sort of thing, and you guys have got some more sophisticated equipment as well. You're generally seeing that becoming more accessible and more useful to different areas of business, and that's what I find fascinating. And there's a lot of challenges to overcome, because in something like the assurance function, for example, is they haven't had this technology available to them, so they'll have to do a lot of R&D and learning and development around the deployment of these technologies to understand their limitations as well as the benefits, so they can use them effectively and not get the problems. And I think that's been the sort of the biggest changes I've seen, is that broadening of interest, and that's only going to get more broader as the technology improves and people learn. So it's a fascinating time.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's a case of where these technologies are becoming more available to even SMEs and businesses who haven't got huge budgets. But I think the interesting thing is, like you said, it's Harry, someone who's so enthusiastic and just adapts to the new environment quite quickly. It's like taking those skills and the current staff who might have not been so familiar, or when they've started their careers not having those digital tools and technologies, so they're not always necessarily that used to using them, but then having somebody like Harry who it doesn't faze Harry, or people who are just coming out of university because they've kind of grown up in a world where it is just accessible and everyone has them, like VR headsets and Unity and things like this, which we've used before at the VEC, and now people have them linking up to the PlayStations. Like you said, people have them at home now. So it's kind of the new skills, isn't it, where it's kind of almost seen as the norm to the younger generations at times, but it's making sure that the current teams and current resources at companies are upskilled, and they don't. Obviously, I think that's the worry, isn't it, sometimes, that you get these new technologies and they think that people are going to be replaced, jobs are going to be lost, but it's not. It's more about the upskilling of that workforce and not replacing them.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one as well. I think one of the biggest issues I see on digital is what I call the fear in organisations. It's very prevalent in senior management, and not just nuclear as well. Equally so in every other industry sector I've come across as well, to be honest. And there's a kind of a fear of technology, and I think that the role of of kind of graduates and new entries into industry is to remove the fear.
Yeah.
The managers themselves need to take some responsibility. They can't just say, oh, we've employed a couple of young guys who know how to use VR. That's okay. Now they can manage the VR. I don't need to think about it. I can go back to doing things the way I've always done it. That can't happen if industries are going to take advantage of this technology. But what they can do is show them that there's actually nothing to be afraid about using this technology. It isn't going to destroy your job. You don't need to be a genius in computing to operate them. You just need to. It's a tool that's can be developed to do the stuff that you know about, and you can use it as much as when you sit at home in front of your iPad, for example, or whatever you do when you do in the evenings. And that I think that's where we'll see some sort of real benefits, is when we start to get these projects to overcome that fear within particularly the most senior management and middle management, particularly as well within organisations around the adoption of digital.
Yeah, definitely. It's a bit of a culture change sometimes, isn't it? It's half the battle sometimes in some companies. So leading on from that, in your opinion, what is the importance of digital skills, and how do you think these will mould the nuclear industry of the future?
The importance of digital skills. Well, that's a really interesting question. Nuclear has to probably do more than any other industry that's set itself up to tackle the issues around climate change, because of the reputation that's been developed over a few years on overspends, cost, the delays in projects, etc. There's also the kind of general, generally within the UK, nuclear is viewed as a positive, but there's always a substantial minority of people who are opposed to nuclear power for various reasons, both rational and irrational, we'd have to say. But because of that, nuclear has to do more than probably any other industry on the planet to address those concerns and to build confidence for investors and other stakeholders in the technology. And I think this is where digital is going to be really important. Nuclear projects are very complex, so the type of tools that we're conceiving and starting to develop on the very small scale in faith, they have the potential alone to meet all of the targets that we've set ourselves as an industry on reducing costs on new build, reducing costs on decommissioning, etc., far more effectively than coming up with some clever new way of doing things, to be blunt. And this is why the industry needs to start to seriously adopt this technology, because it can take us into a position where we can start to lead very quickly, because the other industries are adopting the technology, but not particularly quickly either. It's very mixed across different industry sectors as well.
Yeah.
And there's a definite opportunity there for nuclear to take seize the initiative and take a real lead, and being seen as innovators again, which for many decades, which we, for obvious reasons, because we haven't been building nuclear power stations or building nuclear plants. So we've been very much in the decommissioning mindset. We just haven't been doing that, and it's a real opportunity to take the lead again. I think this is why the nuclear industry should seize the importance of it. It is that's certainly not a position that I'm unique at holding. I work with the Nuclear Industry Association, and their special interest groups in digital are massively oversubscribed always in terms of people's interest. So there's a very keen interest within the industry, and I'm sure that's will be borne out in the next sort of few years as we start to see digital increasingly used in projects.
Thank you very much for joining me today, Mark. It was really interesting speaking with you, and thanks again.
No, thank you very much, and it was a pleasure working with Harry and yourselves on Project Faith, and I hope to work together in the future.
Perfect. Thanks again. So, Harry, coming into Project Faith as a complete newbie, how did you find it at first?
So, as I sort of said before, my thoughts were that it's a huge opportunity for me. There was a lot of learning involved. It was slightly overwhelming because of that. But that's almost a good thing because it meant that there was a lot for me to get out of it. And like we talked about before, the project's extremely innovative and exciting. And it was good to get to know the team and to sort of see where I'll be able to fit in. And it obviously starting to get to know people at NNL and Cammel Laird and meeting different people was a good opportunity and was starting to get me really excited for the project and allowed me to sort of see where it might be in a few months' time. But yeah, the main thing was just as a student, it was quite clear how big an opportunity it was going to be for me to sort of get to grips with these digital technologies that not many people get to work with, and also to sort of experience the working environment as an engineer and sort of find out what it actually is to be an engineer, and how companies and engineering firms go about their business and go about designing these products, etc.
Yeah, that is really interesting, especially like you said, to be able to work with the several big companies within the area as well. That it's another like foot in the door, isn't it? Making those contacts and having like a preview into how the skills and experiences that you learn obviously at university and in academic experience and environments can be applied to industry. And so what was your involvement in Project Faith?
So sort of the objective of my work was to support NNL and Cammel Laird in the use of the digital technologies, and to facilitate the development of the thermohydraulic rig that they were developing. So one of my main responsibilities was to investigate the potential applications of virtual reality in the design stages of the rig. So that mainly consisted of talking to personnel at NNL and Cammel Laird, discussing what they see applications of VR to be and what they would imagine they could use VR for, and then to try and formulate that into a model in itself. So I created a virtual reality model of the rig, which was to sort of act as a proof of concept for the applications that I'd previously discussed.
So was it quite easy to come into the VEC and join the team members that had already been working on Project Faith previously before you arrived?
Yeah, it definitely was. So obviously when I arrived, I wasn't particularly familiar with these digital technologies. So I required a fair bit of training before starting my work. And so Ian Cant and Richard Davies were the two colleagues at the VEC who helped me with that, and they were extremely welcoming and really helpful, and throughout the project helped me with my work and supported me. So Ian knows Unity inside out, and that's what I ended up using to develop the VR model. And so he was always on call to answer any questions that I might have or provide any support, but also to review my work and sort of make sure I'm along the right track, because and both of them had been involved with the project since the start, I think. And they'd done the training for the personnel at NNL and Cammel Laird, so they knew what they were expecting and the sort of things that would be useful to them and how to then go about implementing them as well. So that was a really useful tool for me, and they were really helpful and welcoming in supporting me during the whole of the placement.
Oh, perfect. That's always nice to know. So you've mentioned that obviously they were on hand to help you, offer you some training and develop some of your skills. So which digital skills would you say that you did develop during and for the project?
So I developed a lot of digital skills during the project. My development took a really big leap. So I wasn't particularly familiar with VR technology, and not really familiar with its applications within engineering. But I would say that I've got a pretty strong base knowledge of that now, through working with Ian and Richard on Project Faith. I've learned about the hardware involved, so I can now name all the different types of hardware which could be utilized for various goals using VR, but also I'm able to use these hardware. So for instance, the head mounted displays that we used in Project Faith, the software involved as well. So using Pixie Studio to prepare CAD data, I'm now able to do that myself. And before this placement, I'd never heard of Pixies. And then again with Unity, I've worked extensively with Unity now, whereas prior to the placement, I'd never worked with Unity before. And that involves a lot of C# programming as well, which I've never used C# before. I'd done a limited amount of coding. I had done some and I had a sort of base knowledge around it, but not using C#. And so, yeah, I think my digital skills in general have taken a really big leap during my placement.
So what were the key points that you'd say that you'd taken away from Project Faith and working with the Virtual Engineering Centre?
Well, I've talked about the learning that I've taken away and how much I've developed during this placement. But also for me, the project highlighted the importance of innovation in engineering, and not just in the final product, so to speak, but the method and the design and the manufacture of the said product. I think it's quite easy to just be content with standard engineering methods and it's just the way we do it sort of thing. But Project Faith has shown that even basics such as HAZOPs and design reviews can be improved. And that's kind of what I now see innovation is about. It's just about finding the next steps to improve a process.
Perfect. And how do you think this experience has shaped or changed your career path for the future, or maybe even your take on industry?
Well, I've really enjoyed working with the digital technologies that I've had the opportunity to at the VEC. And I definitely will be looking to do so again and bring that knowledge and skill base that I've acquired here wherever I end up, as it's really interested me.
And lastly, what advice would you give to other students and young people trying to kickstart their digital careers?
I'd really recommend other students and young people to get involved as best they can and as early as they can, and try and seek out different ways into the industry as soon as possible. I'd also recommend that anyone be open-minded about potential opportunities and to challenge yourself and take yourself out of your comfort zone and your area of knowledge. I mean, that's basically is what I've done here. I was quite unfamiliar with a lot of the technologies used at the Virtual Engineering Centre, but all that's meant is that I've had a huge opportunity to learn, and that's done nothing but benefit me. So yeah, it will allow you to get the most out of an experience if it challenges you. And so I'd definitely recommend being open-minded.
So Anna, moving across to you, how did you find it as the Virtual Engineering Centre for introducing Harry to Project Faith, and what did you find were the benefits of bringing an intern to this project?
I think it's important to bring fresh talent to bring people from an academic background that are currently learning the cutting edge of the technology, of the digital methodologies, digital technologies, and also bringing new generations, bring different way of thinking, and sometimes to solve problems we need different angles from different views, and so I think it's very positive. Also, it's good for us as for the BEC. So for the technical stuff from the BEC to learn how other people work, to learn how someone who's never been in a work context, how that person will face a problem. So you just learn from a fresh start. Also, the key benefits to the student and supporting business through internships. I think this is very good for them because they are exposed and they feel that what they learn, because you spend so many years just studying and getting grades, and you just want to be useful and be part of something bigger. So I think for Harry and the others who were here and the next ones, I think it's very positive when you feel part of a team, when you share values in the company, you feel, you're also part of a bigger journey, which is the digital transformation. So whatever you do, it's part of a bigger plan, if I may.
Yeah. I think it's like you said there, it's like people like Harry probably spend quite a long time like learning and sitting in an academic environment, learning about all these different technologies and ways of using them in the workplace, that they're probably actually by the time it comes to it itching to actually put them into some use and do it themselves, rather than just hearing about case studies and examples and how industry are using it.
Yeah, I think also it's very important for them to understand whether they like what they're doing. Also to sometimes you know what happens. Sometimes you're in university in this box, and sometimes you don't even know how you could apply your skills. Like you don't understand the whole spectrum of applications. And so you now get out there, you've got your tools, and you can then start connecting dots and say, okay, actually I could use this in here, and which I find a lot of personal interest because it's, I don't know, a charity, or it works for carbon zero emissions, a company that is very committed to that. So you can then pursue your own values. But I think when you're in university, you cannot just think out of the box. And when you go out there in the work environment, you can understand how valuable you could be.
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, like you said, it's another opportunity as well for young people to start working in industry and having a taste of industry, and maybe even realising that what they wanted to do as a job, they actually maybe don't like, or they discover something else that they prefer and hadn't even thought of it, or weren't even really aware of it because it wasn't in traditional studies, or haven't learned about certain aspects, or like you said, realise that you can actually take that technology and adapt it to this industry. And similar to like the simulation and advanced modelling, like here at the Virtual Engineering Centre, we use those type of technologies and techniques across a variety of industries. Like started off in aerospace, moved to automotive, and now we work in healthcare and nuclear. And it's really interesting and exciting to see how all the industries are kind of picking up on these technologies and where these digital skills can be transferable. So I've asked Mark already, but Anna, with your background as a research engineer focusing on 3D visual computing, and then the work you've done since you've joined us at the VEC within our robotics and autonomous teams, and now our industrial digitalisation team, what changes do you think are going to be taking place within the digital skills and the need and demand for digital skills in the future?
That's a difficult one. Sometimes I think things are changing that fast that I'm not able to see them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially digital skills that are part of, they're part of any industry sector, it's everywhere. It's very easy to lose awareness. So you really have to push yourself to be up to date. So I think, to me, the bigger change is the speed of innovation, which then worries me a bit, because the pace for changing is not the same as adoption. And I'm just worried, like, companies, if we keep growing, I mean, accelerating the digital skills, but then if companies are not adopting, at some point there may be a no turning point where they cannot get on board into this train.
It's really competitive as well, isn't it, certain markets, because of the digital adoption and speed. And I think COVID's probably sped up that even further, because companies have probably realised the need to adopt digital technology and digital skills within their own workplaces, and upskilling current staff, not just replacing staff. It's upskilling the current staff who've already got the know-how of how the business works, and clients and customers and processes and all of that. But making sure that they remain competitive in their working environment and ensure that their customers are remaining happy, because I think customer expectations are growing as well with the growth and change of the working environment. So it was a really interesting point.
And I think it requires a cultural shift in the companies. So I think we should support them in the adoption of the technical digital technologies, but we need also to coach in that cultural shift, probably. It's just to get the best out of this fast-paced field, which is fascinating, but it'll be shame if we don't translate that into, hands-on experiences and benefit for the society.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's almost like, as well, I always think of, you have like the older generation who've always done it how they've done it, and then that builds that culture of like, well, this is how so and so did it, so we've always just done it this way, and it's like traditional. And then you probably have like a young student or intern or just a new member of staff kind of come in, and it's like at Christmas where you'd get like a new toy, and it's kind of like generation difference where somebody will get like the instructions out to read how to put it apart and how it works, whereas like a young person now will just switch it on, and it's like they already know how to use it before they don't need the instruction manual, they just run with it and they know. And it's like, I think you touched on this earlier, it's like, kids come out of like university now, and it's their learning is so different to what other people's are, and it's like they are a real asset to any business that they go to, because they take a whole nother dimension with them, and it's like they're not fazed by new technology or the use of digital and digital transformation, where it can be a bit daunting to some companies, whereas they just need the kind of like industry know-how, and if you can give, as a business, you can give them the little know-how and a bit of experience, they've got all this already built-in know-how of how the digital bit works, so it's like they don't really need to worry about that aspect. They're just eager to get running on the ground with it all.
I mean, the key success of this is meeting both halfway, and the new talent with these fresh minds and very fast-paced adoption of skills, and then the business that they are mature and experienced and they understand, and experience is also important. So also you need to guide that talent, and that comes from maturity. You say that? So
yeah, definitely. There's definitely like pros on both sides, isn't there, of giving that student or intern or young person the opportunity to join industry and get involved and the ball rolling on their own careers, but also as a business, it's opening the door to, like you said earlier, new views of even your own company, not just your industry and how it should work or how they see it working in the future, but like your company as itself, it's complete outside unbiased views coming in, and having that about them to say, well, actually, like suggestions and making changes that way, or I learned this at university, but then also having that summer experience where, like Harry, for example, came and worked with the Virtual Engineering Centre, where he can then go on in his career and already has that background knowledge mixed in with his education, and he can just go on to develop his digital skills further and further.
Yeah, I think the key, the success to develop your digital skills is, well, if you go along with the development of your critical thinking.
Yeah, you know, definitely. Yeah,
you can be very good at something technical, but you need to understand why you're doing this, for what purpose, how you can connect your work, what are the gaps in your work, and why, how would you solve that. So I think that's also the success behind of an engineer with digital skills and who wants to build a portfolio in that field.
Yeah, definitely. It's a wider view of the world, isn't it? Bringing in the academic and methodology and case studies and everything that you've learned during your time in an academic environment. But then also, like you said, it's the know-how of industry and what's going on in the world. And then, like you said, the whys and hows and all of that all coming together and really playing a part in individual development as well as business and industry development and changes.
Working with SMEs and bringing digital technologies and being more specific, factory simulation. So digital skills can help them to understand their business. Sometimes when you need to collect data or when you need to ask about their processes. So when you want to create a virtual model towards the development of a digital twin, when you want to do predictive analysis, anything, you need to go to the SME and to the other party and understand their business, and you ask questions. And sometimes, there are so many events involved into their business that to orchestrate all that and to have, I don't know, an idea of what's going on, or what if I did that, what would be the impact of that. And I think digital skills could help them to get their data. But it's not only getting data and having a fancy database. It's like, how can I use it? What answers can I get? And then, do I have all the data I need? Would I need to get more data? From where? So what are the operations I'm not tracking, and why is that? And you can connect all the events that are occurring at your business. And I think really getting to know more your business, that's the key also for digital skills, and that's how they can help businesses. From there, they will be able to see the gaps. So again, it's like bringing this critical thinking to businesses thanks to digital skills. So you can get data, you can analyze it, you can visualize your data, you can do predictive analysis, forecast, and that will help you to be more critical in the way you run your business. Okay, what are the gaps? What are the bottlenecks? What are the things I need to improve? Why this is not working? What would be the best choice out of the whole spectrum of options? Do I need to partner with another company? That kind of.
Yeah, definitely. I think you hit it on the head there as well, because it's all good having data, and I know it's another like jargon, isn't it, that a lot of people throw a word is this like big data, but unless it's smart data and you know how it's going to make business improvements and how to go about those and what data you need and looking for, and like you said, the bottlenecks, like it's all good collecting data on the bottlenecks, but you need to know why, how, what's the cause for the bottleneck, and then use the data to maybe make recommendations to companies as to how to solve those industry problems and company internal problems as well. And then in turn, it makes them more productive, and it can also open eyes to maybe other bottlenecks that they didn't realize that they had. And like you said, for the factory scanning, it's making sure that now everything's COVID safe and it's all health and safety regulations are all met, but it's also making sure that productivity, even you might think it's a small change moving that desk or that machine, that piece of equipment from there to there, but in the long run, it can make a massive difference. And I think that's the other thing, isn't it? With digital, it hasn't got to be a massive transformation as such. It can be something quite small, what you may even deem as like an insignificant change, but it makes a huge difference. And yeah, it's having that like holistic approach, isn't it, and seeing everything as a whole and not just like blindsiding yourself to just putting blindfolds on to just like one bit that you've been brought in to do, because it could open up a whole number of doors to other opportunities for collaboration and additional projects and support for businesses. So that is a really good point. So lastly, we're joined by Kerry McElroy of the University of Liverpool, who is the project manager for the recently launched Liverpool City Region Graduate Scheme, bridging the gaps between businesses in the region and enthusiastic interns and students. So welcome, Kerry, and thank you for joining us today. So what can you tell us about the scheme and how did it come about?
Yes, so thanks for having us on the podcast. Really proud to be able to talk about this project. And yeah, it's so exciting for us, Liverpool City Region, and the students. I think it shows a lot of potential. Yeah. So the Liverpool City Region Grad Scheme is a project which is funded by the European Social Fund and is going to be an opportunity for SMEs in the Liverpool City Region to really connect better with the graduate talent produced by local universities, and also graduate talent who may be looking to return to the Liverpool City Region upon graduation. So to be eligible for the programme, you need to be an SME in one of the growth sectors in the Liverpool City Region. And you should be looking to hire a graduate on a permanent basis. The aim of the scheme is that the project team based at the University of Liverpool will be acting as, I guess, a conduit between the SMEs who need to hire graduates into their businesses and the talent within the region. So what the scheme aims to do is provide one-door access. So our team would run the recruitment process, the marketing and attraction process, and then for 6 months, we will offer graduate development opportunities to the students who are going to participate in the scheme. That could cover anything from general work readiness, through to digital skills, and I think there's a lot that the training providers can offer in order to be able to upskill the students and support their employability skills so that they're ready to really add value to the SMEs.
Perfect. So all the students who will be involved in the scheme will come from the Liverpool City region. But what are the main selling points that you guys are kind of saying to the students to get them involved?
That's right. I think, when you mention all of the students coming from the Liverpool City region, that's one of the key benefits. It's not just the University of Liverpool students. You could be from JMU, from Edge Hill, even from a university outside of the Liverpool City region, and you want to return on graduation to the city. This is all about us supporting Liverpool talent to stay in the region. And so I think that's one of the huge benefits. It is going to be raising awareness of some of the small, medium, and really interesting business opportunities, businesses that provide excellent career opportunities for graduates. So in SMEs, I think one of the massive advantages for a student of starting your career in a small company is that you have the chance to take on more responsibility. You're not just having to be stuck in one particular role. You can really get to know the business and the different functions within that. And I think it's a great chance to progress and really show your worth and, yes, do the basics of the role, but then your have a chance to show more ability beyond what's expected of you, and so have a great chance to progress.
Brilliant. And then I think also you said something about the expertise and things like that of the students and being supported. So is the graduate scheme kind of like restricted? Do you have to be in a certain area or in under certain studies, or is it open to like a variety of students?
No, you're right, it is open to students from all degree disciplines. And the reason for that is we are going to be working with SMEs from a range of sectors. We also imagine there may be businesses who want to get involved in the programme who are looking for graduates with more technical skills, so potentially computer scientists, to support data functions, engineers, to work in more engineering focused roles. And so we imagine that the Liverpool City Region Graduate Scheme will have two elements, potentially a commercial one and one more technically focused, where you can hire a graduate who has who's from a particular degree discipline with a certain level of expertise.
That's brilliant. So recently your team had an open session with an array of businesses from across the Northwest. So what were the key outcomes and findings, and how will this better shape the scheme in the future?
Yeah, so it's been really interesting looking at those outputs. I think we saw that businesses maybe have been a little bit hesitant about hiring graduates in the past. From an SME's perspective, you can understand the importance of being work ready, as they don't necessarily have the time to sit and tell graduates about basic skills. So being able to, I guess, not be distracted by the lack of those basic skills is really important for an SME, because they can then focus on, throughout recruitment processes, looking for the talent, as opposed to being concerned about prior work experience, because our programme will provide some of the skills they need. Other key findings are, we talked through some of the skills gaps, which were prevalent in a number of industries. What didn't surprise me, computer science and data skills and the necessity there. I think people mentioned that is very important to their business and future growth. So that was another key finding.
But how else do you think that the scheme will have an impact on the Liverpool City region and beyond?
I guess the sky's the limit with regard to that, because we would hope that we'll start to partner more closely and collaborate. There's a variety of stakeholders that this project is going to appeal to, and therefore by getting involved, we'll be talking to each other more. Just by keeping talent in the Liverpool City region, businesses will grow based on that. If we're kind of at the end of the careers, the stars are leaving to go elsewhere. If we get to a point where we have a programme which is appealing for graduates, then we're keeping that talent here to support businesses to grow.
So unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today, but a massive thanks to Kerry for joining us. So thank you very much, Kerry.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Again, a huge thanks to all of our speakers and of course our listeners. All links to more information on Harry's time at the Virtual Engineering Centre, Project Faith and how to get involved with the Liverpool City Region Graduate Scheme will be in the bio. Join us next time on the Virtual Engineering Centre's podcast, Engineering in Digital.